When it comes to human emotions, few are as intense or as dangerous as revenge. History is full of chilling stories where anger and betrayal escalated into unthinkable violence, leaving victims and perpetrators forever entwined in tragedy. These horrifying revenge deaths often combine meticulous planning, shocking brutality, and an almost cinematic sense of irony, making them both terrifying and fascinating. From personal grudges to cold-blooded betrayals, the motives behind these acts reveal the darkest corners of human nature. Exploring these cases reminds us how quickly resentment can spiral out of control, turning ordinary lives into cautionary tales of deadly obsession. The story of Travis Alexander and Jodi Arias does not begin like a horror movie or a crime documentary, but like an ordinary modern romance, the kind that starts with smiles, long phone calls, and the hopeful belief that love can fix anything. They met at a work conference in 2006, clicked quickly, and fell into an intense, whirlwind relationship that friends later described as passionate, dramatic, and exhausting all at once. Travis was charismatic, deeply religious and ambitious, the sort of guy who set goals and chased them hard, while Jodi came across as charming and attentive, eager to be part of his world. At first, everything looked picture perfect, but cracks formed fast. Their relationship turned into an emotional roller coaster of breakups, reconciliations, jealousy, and constant arguments, the kind of toxic push and pull where neither person truly walks away. Friends warned Travis that Jodi seemed possessive and unpredictable, and over time the tension grew thicker, like a storm cloud that never quite cleared. Even after they officially broke up, they kept talking, texting, meeting in secret, blurring the line between exes and something more complicated, and that lingering connection would later make the events feel even more tragic. In June 2008, Travis was found dead in the shower of his Mesa, Arizona home, and the scene investigators walked into was shocking even by homicide standards. He had been stabbed dozens of times, his throat deeply slashed, and he had also been shot in the head, an amount of violence that detectives often call overkill, the kind fueled by rage rather than impulse. It was not just a killing, but a furious, personal attack, the sort that suggests intense emotion behind every blow. The house told its own story, with blood, chaos, and a camera that accidentally captured photos from the day of the murder, images that would later become chilling pieces of evidence. Suspicion quickly turned toward Jodi when she offered shifting explanations, first denying she was there, then blaming masked intruders, and eventually claiming self-defense. Each version seemed to crumble under scrutiny, and the inconsistencies only made the case darker and more complicated. What followed was not just an investigation, but a media spectacle, with interrogations, phone records, and courtroom testimony dissected in public, turning the tragedy into headline news across the country. The trial stretched on for months and felt less like a straightforward case and more like a psychological drama, as jurors and viewers tried to understand how a once loving relationship had spiraled into something so destructive. Prosecutors painted Jodi as calculating and obsessed, someone who could not accept rejection and acted out of jealousy and revenge, while the defense argued fear and survival, insisting she fought back against an attack. The truth, however, seemed buried under layers of manipulation, heartbreak, and conflicting memories. Ultimately, the jury convicted her of first-degree murder, and she was sentenced to life in prison, bringing legal closure but not emotional peace for those who knew Travis. What lingers most about this case is not just the brutality, but how ordinary it all began. How something that started with dates and dreams ended in irreversible violence. It serves as a sobering reminder that unhealthy relationships can quietly escalate, that warning signs matter, and that sometimes the most dangerous stories are the ones that look normal at first glance, until suddenly they are anything but. From the outside, the Hart family looked like something straight out of a feel-good road trip movie, the kind with sun-drenched photos, matching smiles, and captions about love, equality, and adventure. Jennifer and Sarah Hart, a married couple from Washington State, regularly posted pictures of their 6 adopted children hiking through forests, dancing at music festivals, holding free hugs signs at protests, and piling into their SUV for yet another cross-country journey. Friends online saw a progressive, happy, tightly bonded family that seemed determined to prove that love could fix anything. One image even went viral, showing young Devonte Hart tearfully hugging a police officer during a protest, turning him into a symbol of unity and compassion. To thousands of strangers scrolling through their feeds, the Harts looked inspiring, almost unreal in their wholesomeness. But like many things that look too perfect on the internet, the truth behind the filter was much darker and far less comforting. Behind closed doors, neighbors and teachers began noticing small, uneasy details that didn't match the cheerful posts. The children sometimes appeared withdrawn or unusually hungry. Some reportedly asked neighbors for food or said they were being punished by having meals withheld. Others described strict discipline, isolation, and fear of getting in trouble. Over the years, Child Protective Services in multiple states received complaints and opened investigations, yet nothing seemed to stick long enough to permanently change the situation. Each time concerns grew, the family simply moved somewhere new, resetting the story and rebuilding the same polished online image. Meanwhile, the kids kept smiling for the camera. The contrast between the public persona and private reality felt like a slow-building storm cloud, the kind you sense before the sky finally breaks. That break came in March 2018. After fresh reports of neglect surfaced and authorities planned another welfare check, the Harts abruptly packed up and left home, driving south along the California coast. For days, no one knew exactly where they were headed. Then, on a stretch of Highway 1 in Mendocino County, Jennifer Hart's SUV suddenly accelerated off a cliff and plunged roughly 100 feet onto the rocky shoreline below. Investigators later found no skid marks, no sign of braking, and toxicology results showed Jennifer had been drinking. The conclusion was chilling and painfully clear. It wasn't an accident. It was intentional. Jennifer and Sarah died in the crash, along with most of the children, and several of the children's bodies were never recovered, presumed lost to the ocean. Authorities ruled it a murder-suicide, believing Jennifer chose to end everyone's lives rather than face the possibility of losing custody and being exposed. What makes the Hart family case linger in people's minds isn't just the tragedy itself, but the unsettling lesson it leaves behind. It's the reminder that curated photos and heartfelt captions don't always tell the truth, that a smiling family portrait can hide suffering just outside the frame. It exposed gaps in the child welfare system, missed warning signs, and how easily appearances can fool entire communities. The story starts like a bright, adventurous road trip, full of hashtags and hope, but it ends in a way that feels heavy and quiet, like the sound of waves crashing against an empty cliff. And that contrast between the life they showed the world and the reality those children lived is what makes the Hart family murders not just shocking, but heartbreakingly real. The Bath School Massacre of May 18, 1927, stands as one of the most shocking tragedies in American history, and it remains the deadliest act of school violence in the United States. At the center of this horrific event was Andrew Kehoe, a 55-year-old farmer and local school board treasurer, whose growing resentment toward the community culminated in unimaginable violence. Kehoe had long been struggling with financial difficulties, including the impending foreclosure of his farm, which he attributed to rising taxes, and the costs associated with the newly built Bath Consolidated School. Compounding his frustrations, he had recently lost a local election for township clerk, intensifying his sense of grievance. Over time, these personal and financial setbacks festered into a dangerous obsession, as Kehoe developed a plan to exact revenge on the community he felt had wronged him. Kehoe's preparation for the attack was methodical and deliberate, reflecting a disturbing combination of patience, calculation, and cruelty. For months, he secretly planted explosives, dynamite, and pyritol throughout the school building, carefully embedding them in the walls and under the floors in areas where they would not be detected. His own property was similarly rigged with explosives, including his house and farm buildings. On the morning of May 18th, Kehoe first detonated explosives at his home and farm, killing his wife and setting fires that caused additional destruction. He then drove to the Bath Consolidated School and, once inside, triggered the explosives he had meticulously placed over weeks. The resulting devastation was immediate and catastrophic. 38 people were killed, including 38 children, and dozens more were injured. The horror of the day was compounded by the knowledge that the attack was entirely preventable. Had Kehoe's intentions been noticed or intervention taken earlier, the tragedy was further intensified by Kehoe's ability to exploit his position within the community. As the school board treasurer, he was a trusted figure with routine access to the school. This trust allowed him to carry out his plan without suspicion, demonstrating the insidious danger of someone who combines authority, grievance, and patience in such a destructive way. Kehoe did not attempt to escape after the attack. Instead, he drove away and took his own life by detonating explosives in his car, bringing his campaign of destruction to a grimly deliberate conclusion. The aftermath left Bath Township in shock, mourning the loss of children and teachers, grappling with the scale of devastation, and confronting a profound sense of betrayal from someone they had trusted. The Bath School Massacre is a sobering reminder of how personal grievances, if left unchecked and combined with access to lethal tools, can escalate into acts of extreme violence. Unlike modern mass shootings, which often unfold in moments, this attack was planned over months with careful attention to detail, reflecting both premeditation and a deeply rooted sense of revenge. The incident forced communities to reconsider the nature of threats from within, emphasizing the importance of vigilance, mental health awareness, and understanding the warning signs of someone who may harbor dangerous resentment. Kehoe's actions left an indelible mark on American history, demonstrating that the consequences of unchecked anger and calculated malice can be catastrophic, particularly when aimed at the most vulnerable members of a community, its children. The massacre continues to be studied as both a historical event and a cautionary tale about the devastating potential of human rage. The murder of Shanda Sharer is one of the most disturbing and tragic examples of teenage violence in American history. Shanda was a 12-year-old girl from Indiana whose life was cut short by a group of older teenage girls motivated by jealousy, romantic rivalries, and personal grudges. The circumstances of the crime reveal a calculated and premeditated level of cruelty that is almost unimaginable, particularly given the ages of both the victim and the perpetrators. Shanda, a typical middle school student, became the target of these girls' anger simply because she was associated, however indirectly, with a perceived rival in a love triangle. The tension among the teenagers escalated into an obsession, culminating in a plan to kidnap and harm Shanda. This tragic case demonstrates how unchecked emotions such as envy and resentment can manifest in violent and irreversible actions, even among young people. The events of the night of the murder are horrifying in their deliberate cruelty. Melinda Lovelace, the central figure in the crime, along with Lori Tackett, Hope Rippey, and Tony Lawrence, lured Shanda from her home under false pretenses, creating the illusion of safety before subjecting her to captivity and prolonged abuse. Shanda was physically and psychologically tortured over the course of several hours. Witness accounts and trial evidence highlighted the deliberate nature of the violence. This was not a spontaneous outburst, but a meticulously planned attack. The attacker's intent to inflict fear, pain, and humiliation on Shanda reflects a depth of malice and premeditation rarely seen at such a young age. While jealousy and rivalry may seem like common adolescent emotions, the extremity of their actions underscores how destructive and dangerous such feelings can become when amplified by poor judgment, peer influence, and a lack of empathy. The culmination of the crime, in which Shanda was set on fire, ended her life in a manner that was both violent and tragic. The brutality of the act shocked the local community and the nation, leaving an indelible mark on public consciousness. Following the murder, the legal system responded by charging the perpetrators as adults, reflecting the severity of the crime and the conscious intent behind it. The trial revealed not only the harrowing details of the night of the murder, but also the psychological and social dynamics that had contributed to such extreme behavior. This case prompted broader discussions about adolescent mental health, the warning signs of violent tendencies, and the societal factors that can lead young people to commit acts of extreme aggression. Shanda's death continues to serve as a somber reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked anger, envy, and premeditated cruelty among youth. Reflecting on the murder of Shanda Scherer, it becomes clear that this was a case in which ordinary teenage emotions escalated into extraordinary violence with fatal consequences. The combination of jealousy, peer influence, and deliberate planning resulted in a level of brutality that left a community grieving and a nation questioning how such a crime could occur. Shanda's life, abruptly ended at 12, serves as a stark warning about the potential for destructive behavior when empathy and moral judgment are absent. The case remains a critical reference in discussions of adolescent violence, premeditation, and the societal responsibility to recognize and address early warning signs of harmful behavior. It is a tragic story that continues to resonate, underscoring the importance of awareness, intervention, and prevention in protecting vulnerable young individuals from similar fates. Betty Broderick's story is a chilling example of how betrayal, resentment, and unresolved emotional pain can escalate into tragedy. Once a devoted wife and mother, Betty dedicated over 16 years of her life to supporting her husband, Dan Broderick, through law school and into his legal career. She managed the household, raised their 4 children, and sacrificed her own ambitions to ensure his success. Yet, despite her efforts, their marriage crumbled. Dan began an affair with a younger woman, Linda Kolkina, and Betty felt not only hurt but humiliated. What followed was a bitter divorce that became highly public and deeply contentious, with the courtroom battles, custody disputes, and intense emotional conflict. Friends and family witnessed a woman increasingly consumed by anger and a sense of injustice, her resentment growing with each perceived slight. Betty's experience demonstrates how long-term emotional strain, when combined with feelings of betrayal and loss, can push someone toward extreme, destructive behavior. On November 5, 1989, that simmering anger reached its horrifying climax. Betty Broderick went to Dan and Linda's La Jolla home and shot them while they slept. Linda was killed instantly, while Dan survived the attack, physically injured, and left with the trauma of surviving a calculated act of violence in his own home. The murder shocked the nation. Betty, once seen as a devoted mother and wife, became the focus of intense media scrutiny and public debate. Her actions were widely analyzed, raising difficult questions about the nature of obsession, revenge, and the psychological impact of betrayal. The case illustrated that domestic and emotional conflicts, when left unresolved, can escalate beyond argument and legal disputes into lethal consequences. It also highlighted the vulnerabilities within relationships affected by infidelity and high-conflict divorces, showing how emotional turmoil can manifest in dangerous and irreversible ways. The trial that followed reflected the complex emotional and legal dimensions of the case. Betty's defense argued that years of emotional distress, humiliation, and betrayal drove her to commit the crime, emphasizing the psychological pressure she had endured during the divorce and her subsequent struggle to cope. The prosecution, however, presented evidence of premeditation, portraying Betty as deliberate in her actions and determined in her plan to exact revenge. Ultimately, she was convicted of second-degree murder for the death of Linda Kolkina and attempted murder for shooting Dan Broderick, receiving a sentence of 32 years to life in prison. Over the decades, Betty's story has remained in the public consciousness through books, documentaries, and dramatizations, offering both a cautionary tale and a case study in the devastating effects of unresolved anger and emotional trauma. The tragedy serves as a reminder of the destructive power of obsession, the consequences of escalating personal conflicts, and the far-reaching impact of violence on families and communities. Betty Broderick's life and actions are sobering evidence that unresolved emotional pain, if left unchecked, can culminate in irreversible and devastating outcomes.